It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, British spies and elite forces caught up in the Afghan data leak. Defence sources say the personal details of MI6 personnel, as well as members of the SAS and Special Forces, were included in the documents because they had sponsored Afghans who had applied to come to the UK. The government is facing growing calls for an inquiry. Also ahead, the biggest change to voting rights in decades, with 16-year-olds allowed to cast their ballots at the next general election. We'll hear from young people on both sides of the debate, and we'll look at what the plans could do to the electoral landscape. Plus, the miscarriage of justice that's taken half a century to undo. We'll have the story of two men who were framed by a corrupt police officer, one of them dying before his name was cleared. And I speak to Jordan Stevens from Brizzle Kicks as he tackles online sextortion and calls for new outlets for boys away from the internet. All that's come and much more on the UK Tonight. But we start tonight with breaking news, and a major incident has been declared after a bus carrying school children crashed in Somerset. The crash happened near Minehead on the A396 between Wedden Cross and Timberscombe this afternoon. The children, we understand, were returning from a school trip. A number of people have been taken to hospital. We can head straight now to Sky Shingi Marike, who's following this breaking news for us from the newsroom. Shingi, what more details do we have at this stage, if any?
Good evening, SJ. Yeah, details still emerging around this incident, which seems like it could be deeply distressing, but we are getting more information from the emergency services who have called a major critical incident. That means they are diverting resources in the way of this accident, which took place around 3:15 p.m. on the A396 near Minehead in Somerset. And we have had a number of statements, including from Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, who's being kept aware of the situation, as well as the local MP. And we have had a statement from the police in which they gave us more detail, and I can read that for you. It says that calls came in at about 3 p.m. reporting a bus had left the road near the junction with Ashwell Lane and Stearts Lane. Most of the passengers have been taken off the bus. Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue are working to free the remaining occupants, and South Western Ambulance Service are also at the scene. Now, we've also heard from the coach company. We've heard from Peter Pryor, their director, who has said this. He said, everyone within the Riddlers team is, of course, deeply concerned and anxious to find out more detail, particularly concerning the welfare of the driver and passengers. While we wait for further information from police and other emergency teams, our hearts, of course, go out to the school pupils and to our driver. We will be doing everything possible to understand what has happened. And there'll be lots of people in that position. We understand that a rest area has been set up for people who are going to see casualties who have been taken to a pub in the local area of Wedden Cross as well, that village there near where the incident took place. So there'll be more information over the course of the evening, but we know that there have been a number of casualties in this bus accident.
Shingi, thank you. We'll keep across that story for you this evening here on Sky News and bring you any further developments. We have some more breaking news coming into us now, and reaction to the attack on Gaza's Holy Family Church. This has come from the Israeli Prime Minister's office. 3 people died when the territory's only Catholic church was struck. This statement from Benjamin Netanyahu's office says this: Israel deeply regrets that a stray ammunition hit Gaza's Holy Family Church. Every innocent life lost is a tragedy. We share the grief of the families and the faithful. We are grateful to Pope Leo for his words of comfort. Israel is investigating the incident and remains committed to protecting civilians and holy sites. That's the statement from Benjamin Netanyahu's office this evening after Gaza's only Catholic church was hit in a strike. Now, to our top story this evening, it has emerged that the personal details of MI6 personnel, as well as members of the SAS and Special Forces, were included in the Afghan data leak at the Ministry of Defence. The details were included in the documents because they had sponsored Afghans who applied to come to the UK. The government is facing growing calls for an inquiry. Well, with more details on this latest development, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is standing by in Westminster. John.
Well, the plot thickens, really, because there's another big twist in this story, which first emerged on Tuesday when John Healey, the Defence Secretary, made a shock statement to MPs, revealing not just the blunder of the data breach, but the cover-up as well, which was condemned by MPs. Now, what has happened today is that we've learned about a number of 100 names of British government personnel been exposed. Now, they include MI6 spies, members of the SAS, members of Parliament, government ministers and other senior military figures. Now, Mr Healey told MPs on Tuesday that in a small number of cases, the names of MPs, senior military officers and government officials were noted as supporting these applications to flee the Taliban and people who had, of course, helped British forces and Western forces in the war in Afghanistan. So what has happened now is that there are further calls for a public inquiry and other inquiries as well. Stepping up the calls for a public inquiry, which was backed in the Commons yesterday by the Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, one of his MPs, their spokesperson on defence, that is Helen Maguire. Now, she is a former captain in the Royal Military Police. She served in Bosnia in a NATO peacekeeping mission. This is what she told Sky News about her party's calls for a public inquiry a little earlier this evening.
We'll be looking for inquiry into all elements of what has happened here. So basically, both the data leak and the injunction into this, and also to provide recommendations as to what the MOD needs to do moving forwards to make sure that incidents like this simply don't happen again.
Well, in addition to that, the Intelligence and Security Committee, now that's the powerful committee that meets behind closed doors, made up of senior peers, MPs, interviews spooks and so on in secret. Lord Beamish, the chairman of that committee, former Labour MP Kevin Jones, has hit out at the fact that his committee was kept in the dark because of the gagging order imposed by Tory ministers Ben Wallace, James Heapy and others. Mr Heapy has broken his silence today, admitting it was gut-wrenching to find out someone in the MOD had, as he put it, screwed up so awfully. But on the individual concerned, he said that person was incredibly dedicated to those we served with in Afghanistan. In other words, he knows who it was. And in the last few minutes, we've heard from the chairman of the Defence Select Committee, that's the Labour MP Tan Desai, who's talked about their own inquiry, and he said that they've agreed to inquire into this shocking situation. We've yet to determine the full scope for that, including who will be called to give evidence.
John, thank you. John Craig with the latest there from Westminster. Just want to bring you an update on the breaking news we brought you at the top of the hour and the coach crash involving school children in Somerset. We've just had this statement from Beacon Education Trust. It says, we are working closely with the emergency services and relevant authorities following an incident this afternoon to support our pupils, families and staff at this very difficult time. We will update our school community further as soon as more information becomes available, and we kindly ask you for your patience and understanding as we manage this evolving situation with care and sensitivity. So that statement coming from Beacon Education Trust regarding the school children involved in that coach crash earlier on this afternoon. More on that, I said, as we get it. Now, at the age of 16 in the UK, you can leave school, you can move out of the family home, you can get married, you can even join the military. And at the next general election, under plans announced today by the government, 16-year-olds will be able to vote for the first time. It's part of what ministers are describing as their plans to modernise our democracy. However, polling out today suggests that the majority of the public actually doesn't support this move. Our People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has this report.
The decision to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to have their say in elections prompted quite a debate among these politics students at a school in North London.
I think as a concept, it's quite a positive thing because it does increase representation for younger voters. I talked to some of my classmates and they are not politically involving themselves and they don't have any political intelligence on purpose, and that's worrying.
I think it's about time The voting age in Scotland is 16 to 17, and the voter turnout and how it's worked out there has only been improving ever since they introduced it.
I feel like it was correct having it at 18 because that's when you turn and become an adult.
It's really good for us to be able to have a say in policies and laws that ultimately affect our lives.
Traditionally, you see younger voters, 18 to 24, mainly voting for more left-wing parties like Labour. But the rise of reform and its use of social media definitely could be helped by this 16 to 17-year-old cohort.
It is a major piece of electoral reform, but not a surprising one. It was, after all, a Labour manifesto promised before the last election that could change the shape of the next one.
If at the age of 16 you can work, pay taxes, join the army, there's no reason why young people should not have the right to participate in our democracy, choose who their representatives are, and shape the future of our country through the democratic process.
It's more than half a century since the last time the voting age was lowered. Labour PM Harold Wilson thought that reducing the voting age to 18 would help the party. Labour was, he said, the party of youth. And if the youth vote was significant then, it didn't quite work out for Labour, as a year later the Conservatives won the 1970 general election. The government have described this as the biggest change to democracy in a generation. But all political parties now will be vying for the votes of 16 and 17-year-olds as a new battleground has opened up. But the truth is, some political parties are off to a head start. Reform, led by Nigel Farage, have 6 times as many followers on TikTok than Labour does, and potentially they have the power to tap in to a new generation of voters.
If you look back at last year's general election, we've had a go at trying to project how it would have shifted the vote shares based on how we know young people generally vote. And what we find is that we're talking about movements in decimal points here. We're not talking about radical change. The Tories would be down a little bit. Labour and the Greens would have been up a little bit. But in an era of multi-party politics, where seats are won on very small shares of the vote, those small movements can have an outsized impact.
It's thought the change to the voting age could inject another 10 million voters into the system. Winning them over could be the key to power. Nick Martin, Sky News.
I'm joined now to discuss this impending change by Aidan Wang, a 13-year-old who will be able to vote in the next general election, and a member of the Youth Parliament for the City of London, Zara Chowdhury. Welcome to you both. Good to see you this evening. Aidan, I'm going to come to you first. Potentially a general election coming in 2029, some time off yet, but you may well be voting in that. How are you feeling this evening?
I feel like it's both a good thing and a bad thing, because on one side, you can give a more open view and more experiences to people who would never have it and get them more involved with the community. But on the other hand, I feel like this could result in a lot of bias against, like, for example, the core of politics is the actual policies. And I feel like with the social media and Nigel Farage being so far ahead of Labour and all the others in TikTok, for example, I feel like that could result in unfair votes because they're not going off of the policies that they want. They're going off of what they've seen. And I feel like social media could impact the votes in significant ways.
Yeah, that is a really interesting point. Zara, first of all, how are you feeling about this impending change in the law that will see 16 and 17-year-olds be able to vote in the general election? What was your initial reaction? Because as part of the Youth Parliament, you've been campaigning for this for decades.
Yes, so when I heard the news, I was extremely delighted. As you've said, we've been campaigning for this for decades. And after meeting so many young people in the Youth Parliament, and also I attended a roundtable event the other day with My Life, My Say, there were lots of young people who expressed their support for votes at 16. We're all very, very excited. And I mean, I understand what Aidan's saying, that there's a lot of speculation around social media and political literacy. And well, I mean, I think that young people, I mean, they have so many responsibilities at 16. When you're 16, you can go and work, you can pay taxes, but I understand there might also be that kind of bias out there.
Yeah.
So, well, I am sure that the government will work with the Department for Education to provide some sort of political literacy program to better inform our young voters. I mean, sure, the purpose of Votes at 16 is to make young voters more confident, to basically encourage them into get that habit. And from what I've seen as a member of Youth Parliament, there are so many young people out there who are truly passionate about politics, who are engaged. And if we can kind of foster that kind of engagement and build on it.
Yeah, a big opportunity for those who are politically engaged. However, you know, this has been in place in Wales. In fact, 16-year-olds can vote in Wales for the first time in 2021 at the Senedd elections. The move gave an extra 70,000 teenagers across Wales the right to vote. However, less than half that number actually took the step of registering for a vote. I want to come back to something you mentioned, Aidan, and Zara picked up on it there, this political literacy. A lot of the criticism has been, look, at 16, yes, you can do many things, you can move out of home, etc. But have you got the life experience? Have you got the knowledge on policies, as you put it, Aidan, to vote? Now, you're both better placed than I am to talk about what you learn about politics in school at the moment. When I was at school, you probably didn't talk about politics until you went into your A-levels, until you were sort of that age. There was a politics A-level. I know there's now a citizenship course that's going to become mandatory, this government says. But Aidan, talk to me about how genned up on politics 16 and 17-year-olds will be come 2029.
I don't think 16-year-olds will properly take on the voting and like properly embrace it, because I feel more so like they're going to, as I've said, vote for the party they've seen online. Because I feel...
And you worried about that? Because that has been the criticism on social media. You referred to TikTok, didn't you? And it's short snippets of information, and we know about the spreading of misinformation. Are you worried that, you know, younger people don't fact-check those sources on social media? I mean, you could argue that a lot of adults don't either, but is this a particular concern for you?
I feel like the information part is less so, because you can just say anything, and as long as you're somewhat entertaining, you're going to get liked. And I feel like Nigel Farage, for example, on TikTok, is able to attract many people of the younger audience to like him, and so he's just going to be getting the votes while no one's actually fact-checking which policies that they would like, realistically.
Yeah, Zara, is this a particular concern for you, or are we doing young people a disservice?
I think that, well, from the young people that I've met through various programs, I think that we all know that misinformation exists, but I think that they also have the initiative to take action and fact check these themselves. And I'm sure if voting at 16 is coming into place, I'm sure there'll be measures out there to implement like an unbiased political literacy education program, or some sort of initiative will be in place to ensure that, to educate the young people to kind of like navigate around the digital world.
Yeah, well, they've got time to do it. As I said, the next general election, not potentially until 2029. The government's saying this will boost democratic engagement and help restore trust in UK democracy. Up to 9.5 million more people will now be able to vote. Zara and Aidan, thank you so much for your time. Zara Chowdhury, they're member of Youth Parliament for the City of London. Aidan Wang, 13 now, but come 2029, he'll be 16 and voting for the first time. Good to speak to you both this evening. Thank you. Just got a statement to bring you now from Bridget Phillipson. This is on the coach crash involving school children that happened earlier on this afternoon. Bridget Phillipson putting this statement out on social media. I'm shocked and saddened to hear of an incident involving a coach carrying school children in Minehead. I would like to thank the emergency services for their continuing work in these challenging circumstances, and my department stands ready to support the school community. That is Bridget Phillipson releasing a statement on social media a short time ago. We understand that this coach was returning from a school trip. Bridget Phillipson, the Secretary of State for Education, there with her statement. More on that breaking news as we get it here on Sky News. More developments to come. Now, in other news today, the family of murdered MP Sir David Amess have renewed their calls for a public inquiry. This is after a report into the UK's anti-extremism programme found it missed several chances to protect the public from his killer. The review was led by Lord Anderson and found a series of failings in Prevent's handling of the Southport attack 3 years later as well. Joining me now for her reaction to that report, Sir David Amess's daughter, Katie. Katie, it's really good to see you again. Thank you so much for coming on to react to this report. I know you didn't do any interviews yesterday because you felt that you wanted to read and digest this report. You weren't given a preview or any heads up about it. So first of all, your reaction to what you read, because you feel that it pointed out failures but doesn't actually tell you why they happened, which you felt was the whole point of this report, right?
Yes, I mean, we weren't aware the report was coming out. We were informed by journalists that it was coming out. So it was, again, deeply shocking and distressing to us to hear that we hadn't even been given a heads up. So I had to take time to speak to my legal team. And this is the top legal team in the country. And they have gone through this report with a fine-tooth comb. And in essence, the report is absolutely useless to us. It lists the failings. It doesn't have any interviews with people. It doesn't give us any answers. We are none the wiser as to why a guy that was being monitored by a government scheme was then free to go on and commit this terrible atrocity. And everybody heard Sir Keir Starmer stand up in Parliament when he was being asked parliamentary questions and said, I will make sure that the Amess family get the answers that they deserve. I can tell you right now, this report does not give us any of the answers that we deserve. If anything, it raises more questions than answers. So again, very upset.
What questions still remain for you, Katie? What is it you need?
Well, basically, the guy that did it was taken for one coffee in McDonald's. He had a discussion with this Prevent advisor, and they said he was a great guy and that he didn't need further monitoring. Well, why? What was the basis for him not to have further monitoring? They had in the budget 7 sessions with him, but they never took another meeting with him. I want to know why the person made that decision. What was the rationale for that? Who else was involved in making these decisions? Why he didn't have his 6-month review? Why didn't he have his yearly review? There was no follow-up whatsoever. And when the tragedy that happened in Southport, when that happened and their Prevent Learning Review came out, they said, okay, there's a series of failings here. So what we'll do is we'll do an inquiry to understand why these failings happened. But in my case, they're saying, okay, these failings happened. That's the end of it. Move on. But you can't move on when it's your father and you're living in grief and trauma and heartache every single day. You can't just move on from this. I have to fight for these answers, because until we know why these mistakes happened, this is going to happen again, and we'll be sitting here time and time again. And I just don't understand why we aren't being allowed the inquiry that other people are having. And it's not fair and it's not right. And the government needs to do the right thing. They said that if I did this review with Lord Anderson, if I let him do it, then I could come back to them. And if I wasn't satisfied, they would work with me. So that's exactly what I plan on doing. And I'm calling to meet with them, and I'm calling for the inquiry.
Yeah, I mean, Katie, your anger is palpable because not only do you want justice for your dad, but you want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. How many times, have we been here? I've lost count of the times I've been sitting here on Sky News with grieving relatives such as yourself saying, there are recommendations if they're lucky enough to have an inquiry. We have to make sure this never happens again. And yet many of the recommendations aren't acted on. Things do happen again, and it's a cycle that has to be broken. So I really understand your anger, and I really appreciate you coming on tonight. And the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister, as you said, you're going to go back to them and ask for an inquiry. Because do you feel that Lord Anderson didn't perhaps get the cooperation, didn't get the answers, didn't get the information to give you some of the answers that you and your family want?
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't have the power to call these people to give the answers. He didn't even speak to the coroner. The coroner refused to speak to him. I don't know why he refused to speak to him. He didn't speak to any counter-terrorism police. A meeting happened between the coroner and counter-terrorism police after it happened to my father, but mysteriously no notes were taken of that meeting. I want to know what was in those notes. What is it that we don't know? The Lord Anderson basically couldn't interview anybody because he has no judicial power. The only way that we can get these answers is through the inquiry.
And it's about accountability as well. Like you said, in this report, mistakes were highlighted, but we knew mistakes were made. You want to know why they were made. But is it about accountability? We're not talking about witch hunts, but we're talking about people doing their jobs properly, keeping records properly. Is accountability really important to you in this?
Massively, because this isn't a job, you know, a mistake at work is if you forget to make a duplicate copy of something. But this kind of mistake at work is that a member of parliament is brutally killed in a church doing his job. That kind of mistake, we cannot just say, oh, well, we made an admin error there, let's carry on with our lives. No, this is an attack on democracy. And until we find who made these mistakes, why they made them, what has been changed, this is going to happen again. It's not something we can be playing about with. This is somebody's life, and my family is smashed to smithereens, and we really, really need and we deserve these answers.
Well, Katie, as ever, I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this issue and to talk about your father as well. Katie Amis, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, some more breaking news to bring you this evening, and the extreme sportsman Felix Baumgartner, known for his skydive from the edge of space back in 2012, has died in a paragliding accident. He was 56. It happened in Italy earlier on today. Baumgartner reportedly falling ill during the flight and crashing into a swimming pool at a holiday resort, injuring a woman who was in the pool at the time. The daredevil became a household name after he jumped from a helium balloon at an altitude of 24 miles 13 years ago. That is the extreme sportsman Felix Baumgartner, dying at the age of 56. And just also to update you about that coach crash involving school children in Somerset that happened earlier today. We are expecting an update from the police at 9 o'clock this evening. So keep tuned to Sky News for an update on that. Still to come here on the programme. We'll have the latest from court as a man accused of allegedly assaulting police officers at Manchester Airport gives evidence. Also to come, 2 men cleared years after crimes they didn't commit. We'll have the details.
gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
A man accused of assaulting police officers at Manchester Airport has told a court he feared he was going to be battered to death. Mohammed Fahir Ahmaz and his brother Mohammed Ahmad both deny all of the charges against them. Our Chief North of England correspondent, Greg Milam, has more. And just to warn you, his report includes CCTV from the incident that you may find distressing.
This is the first time we've heard from either of the two brothers who were accused of being involved in that incident at Manchester Airport last July. The jury heard from Mohammed Ahmaz, who's accused of assaulting 3 officers that day. The jury, of course, has already been shown CCTV footage and body-worn video footage of what happened that day when police went to arrest Mohammed Ahmaz for an alleged earlier assault. He said he didn't know who was grabbing him. If I'd known it was the police, he said, I would have let them do what they needed to do. He said he was being forced against the ticket machine, an officer grabbing his neck and forcing him to the ground. I was resisting, he said. I was scared. I was frightened. I didn't want to go to the ground. I believed they would have battered me to the point I was dead. They would have killed me. It's not like it's not happened in the past with police officers, he said, who've abused their powers, and as a result, people have died. He was asked about the incident where a police officer suffered a broken nose. He said, I didn't register that it was a woman. I was defending myself. I just turned and threw a punch. He said he only realised when he saw the officer on the ground that it was another police officer. He said he saw what he thought was a gun being pointed by one of the officers at his brother. He didn't realise it was a taser. He said, I thought they were about to shoot and kill my brother. It was the worst possible scenario. I couldn't let them shoot my brother. He said, at that moment, I believed I saved his life. Looking back on the incident as a whole, he said, I felt we were under attack. I was trying to protect myself and my brother. I felt I was fighting for my life. Now, Mohammed Ahmaz said that his uncle, his brother, several cousins are serving officers with the Greater Manchester Police. He says he has the utmost respect for the police force, but he said his family members who are in the force have told him that there are good officers and bad officers, just as there are good people and bad people in life. He will continue to give evidence tomorrow, where it's expected he'll be cross-examined by the prosecution.
19 more alleged abuse victims have come forward following a Sky News investigation into a now-closed children's home in Norfolk. Numerous people have told us they experienced physical, emotional and sexual abuse at the Red House, a home founded in the late 1960s by a Danish organisation that has been described as a cult. A warning that this report from our correspondent Alice Porter contains references to suicide and themes that you may find distressing.
It was like hell on earth. You wondered what was going to happen to you next.
At 15, Colin, not his real name, was placed at the Red House. The reality of his new home soon set in.
They put these 3 lads in my room. They squeezed me round my neck and literally I passed out. And when I came round, they were sexually abusing me, 3 of them. I was screaming and screaming. Next day I ran and I never went back there.
The children's home was based on this site in Norfolk, but teenagers were sent there from all over the country. It was run by a Danish group called Tvin, which has been described as a cult. Since we first reported on the Red House scandal in March, 19 more alleged victims have come forward. The total number is now 62. Sky News has obtained an inspection report from Norfolk County Council in 1994, which shows they were aware of suspected sexual abuse and physical abuse. The total number of children involved was 20, yet the home stayed open. And 3 years after that report, Norfolk sent a teenage boy to the home knowing there were multiple abuse allegations. His testimony is portrayed by an actor.
It seemed that the Red House was their black hole where they could just dump people and not worry about them. I can't even think of an instance when the social worker turned up to even check on me. The members of staff, they were very heavy-handed. If they had to restrain somebody, they did it very forcefully. It was very cultish as well.
Those still working for Tvin in Denmark say they are not associated with the former Tvin corporation. Norfolk County Council say, "We continue to investigate and respond to those private claims through the appropriate legal channels. Our thoughts are with all survivors of abuse, but as there is an ongoing legal claim relating to Red House, we cannot comment further at this time." The home was shut down in 1998. No one has been charged. Now, the victim's lawyer is trying to sue local authorities which sent children to the home and Norfolk County Council.
We urge Norfolk Council, who we say at the centre of this, in whose geographic area Red House was based, to tell the truth. They were aware from very early on that central government were concerned about the abuse and allegations of abuse, and they failed to act.
2 of Colin's friends from the Red House took their own lives. He says he's speaking up for them, hoping that, finally, there may be accountability. Alice Porter, Sky News.
Well, if you've been affected by that story, you can contact the Samaritans. The number is 116 123, or you can email joe@samaritans.org. 2 men wrongly convicted on the basis of evidence from a corrupt police officer have had their names cleared after 5 decades. Errol Campbell, who died in 2004, and Ronald D'Souza, one of the men known as the Stockwell Six, were both framed in the 1970s. Sky's Sadia Chowdhury has the story.
For years up to and after his death, the British justice system called Errol Campbell a convicted thief. But he was an innocent man. This police officer had put Mr. Campbell and at least a dozen others behind bars during the 1970s. Detective Sergeant Derek Ridgewell had made up the charges, planting evidence on men he targeted for their skin colour. Today, appeal court judges quashed Mr. Campbell's conviction, the 12th case relating to DS Ridgewell. It ends one family's decades-long campaign for justice.
My dad always said he was innocent, and today that's finally been confirmed almost 50 years later.
Speaking through a lawyer, Mr. Campbell's son said prison caused his father absolute misery.
Due to the shame and disgrace of this conviction, he found it difficult to get employment, so much so that he fled the country. On his return, he became an alcoholic and couldn't hold down a lollipop man's job.
The families of those wrongfully convicted are calling for the law to change so that cases involving discredited police officers are automatically and independently reviewed. And lawyers representing Errol Campbell's family also want more transparency from the police forces involved.
50 years ago, it was no secret that Detective Sergeant Derek Ridgewell was racist and corrupt. There was a calypso song about him in South London. There was a BBC documentary made about him. So the British Transport Police still have questions to answer.
The force told Sky News it is sorry and disgusted. We're continuing to review records relating to DS Ridgewell's corrupt practices, which includes those relating to officers who were associated with DS Ridgewell or may have assisted him in his criminal activity. And the review team has recently been provided with additional resources to support its work. Derek Ridgewell died while serving time in prison for theft from the same depot where he'd accused Errol Campbell of stealing. But the Court of Appeal heard he was able to continue his racist and corrupt behaviour after being transferred from another police department where he'd been behind the convictions of other innocent men, including the group that became known as the Stockwell Six. They were accused of attempting to rob Ridgewell on the tube. 5 were convicted. 4 had their convictions overturned in 2021. Before the last of the accused, Ronald D'Souza, had his quashed today. Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight, I speak to Rizzlekick's Jordan Stevens about the deepening crises of sextortion. Next tonight, the rise of sextortion, where criminals threaten to share sexual images or videos of someone unless they give them money. Well, recent figures suggest 65% of teenagers and young adults in the UK have been targeted. My next guest is hoping to bring that number down. Musician Jordan Stevens has made a documentary hoping to raise awareness of the subject by tracing the scammers behind a crime that is destroying young lives. We can take a look now at some of the documentary, and just to warn you, you may find the content of this clip distressing.
Could you try and explain to us what happened with Murray?
Somebody started messaging him, posing to be a young girl his age, about 16, and they'd been talking all night, and then she asked him to send her an intimate photo, and Murray decided to do that. They turned out not to be who they're saying they were. They were a scammer, and they were asking for money from Murray, or else they were going to send the photos to like all his friends on his follower list, and Murray decided to take his own life.
Well, I spoke to Jordan, and I asked him why sextortion was becoming such a growing problem.
Ultimately, it's thousands of miles away. It's outsourced crime, basically. You know, in this case, I mean, you'll see in the documentary where we end up, but there's multiple places around the world: the Philippines, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, often places with growing wealth inequality. I mean, for example, in Nigeria, it's 2,000 naira to the pound. You know, the exchange rate is wild, and that is ultimately the only reason why there are people being targeted, boys being targeted in the UK, US, Switzerland, Australia, is because of the strength of the currency.
So a couple of £100 that these boys might be forced into handing over would be a year's wages.
A year's rent. You could literally pay for a year's worth of rent with one sextortion, basically.
There's a team of scammers in Nigeria, and then meanwhile in the UK, the victims, you talk about profile.
Yes.
What is it about this group of boys that makes them particularly vulnerable?
Yeah, so, you know, there is a series of trial and error, I guess, from the scammer's perspective, understanding what kind of person is easier to scam or who is most likely to accept the request. And they've deduced that, you know, young boys in sports teams, for example, seem to be more susceptible to accepting these requests. But also, just talking about the societal conversation around masculinity, I certainly feel like it's a duty of mine to remind or encourage people to see the beauty in masculinity, and part of that for me is protecting the innocence of boys and understanding that, you know, we do have to instruct children how to become adults, and that's one of our jobs, but I really want people to remember that boys are equally susceptible to, you know, that they are potential victims, you know, they really, I don't want them to lose that innocence too quickly.
And that comes back to what you do away from this documentary, the sort of broader picture, if you like, of what you do, of being a spokesperson for young men and boys. And we talk a lot about toxic masculinity, and I know it's a term that you feel that has now sort of been overused, and we could actually talk about it a bit more intelligently, really, rather than using this broad term. But in terms of, you know, talking to young men and boys, giving them the confidence to explore their emotions and their feelings without fear of prejudice or shame. That's something you really want to talk about, because you feel it's the key to them not being targeted like this.
Yeah, I think
getting in that situation.
100%. You know, you have to ask. We have to ask outside of. Well, I mean, this documentary is you know, we want to raise awareness. We want to show parents and young people what can happen on the internet. But if we were to extend the conversation, there's obviously an environment that breeds a desire to connect to strangers online. I think for boys, I've been very sad to see a perpetual lack of funding put towards youth centres and spaces outside of the home and school where young people can go and be guided and mentored and connect to other people around them. And, you know, and then they end up seeking solace online. And then, equally, again, this is just my opinion, but I do wonder if we have a slightly too prudish of an approach to sexuality, because whether we like it or not, puberty and the hormones in the human body encourage thoughts and feelings, and if young people aren't able to understand or identify how they feel, then they stay quiet and they feel ashamed. And I don't want that. I think we should normalise having healthy conversations around sex as well.
The internet companies, the social media companies have a role to play as well. and throughout the course of your documentary, what did you make of the role that they are or are not playing in keeping children safe from this? Because whatever app you use online now, there is pretty much always a direct messaging service, a way for people to interact privately and start conversations, often unsolicited.
Yeah. The reality is these apps, once upon a time, probably were created with the intention of providing a service that isn't to the detriment of its
it's all
users.
about the global community, wasn't it?
Yeah, but now it's like, it's let's see how many people we can get with eyes on our product. I would argue it should be harder to start a social media account. The fact that this particular, the name that was scamming me, developed 47 other accounts, you know, in a short space of time in and around it. It shouldn't be that easy, in my opinion, to create a social media account that then has instant access to young people. In my dream world, young people aren't even on social media. It shouldn't even be available until you're over 18. But, you know, like I said, I don't know how realistic this is my opinion. This is just obviously in an ideal world. I 100% think they could be doing more.
Still to come on the programme, as Rory McIlroy approaches the end of his round, we'll have the latest on the day's action at the Open.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. No freedom! Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. You're watching Sky News. We're going to take you live to Bridgewater in Somerset shortly. We are expecting an update from Avon and Somerset Police about that coach crash that happened earlier on this afternoon involving school children returning from an end-of-year school trip. We will also be hearing from the fire and ambulance services, all in attendance at the scene earlier today. It is due to start at 9 o'clock, so stay tuned to Sky News for that update that should get underway within the next few minutes. But right now, let's have a look at the day's sport. David is here. We'll have an update on the Lionesses shortly. But last night we were talking about Royal Portrush, the start of the Open.
Yep.
Rory McIlroy, of course, hometown boy. How's it gone?
Typical Rory roller coaster is probably the best way to describe it. We've seen a bit of everything. Let's see
Rory in action. Lost a shot early on, but then managed to get 3 birdies in a row. Let's show you him at the 5th. Birdie putt here, which was really important for his confidence, just to get him into the minus numbers. And he would follow this up with another birdie. Then at the 7th, this approach was spectacular. This effectively is his 3rd shot on the par 5 7th. So this goes in, it's an eagle. Look how close he got. Oh, agonising. Managed to sink the putt for birdie, though. However, after being 3 under through 10, 3 bogeys in 4 holes. So he's back to level par, 4 shots off the lead. It's a 5-way tie for the lead, including Matt Fitzpatrick, former US Open champion. But it really depends. Tee times are important today because there's all sorts of weather around the Royal Port.
Yeah, it looks really windy there.
And proper rainy as well.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But that's, it's not a links test unless you have the weather as well. So
OK, what about the rest of the field? Scotty Scheffler, of course, world #1. How's he been looking?
Yeah, US PGA champion, always, in the mix. And he is 3 under with just 1 shot off the lead. And the thing about Scotty is it kind of doesn't matter the conditions for him. He always finds a way. His penultimate hole, almost an eagle for him as well. Birdied that hole and finished with a 3 under par round of 68. So that is, as far as Scotty Scheffler is concerned, there are lots of English players in the mix there for the lead, or at least a share of the lead. So we'll keep you up to date with the Open. Let's also update you on how the Lionesses are getting on at the Euros.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
How do you manage to keep your spirits up and the spirits of your teammates after challenges you may face?
Self-confidence in yourself and your own ability is such an important aspect to have.
I've had a number of injuries the last 1.5 or 2 years, and they're taking their toll on my head at times.
Sometimes you just need to grab somebody and just give them a hug, tell them that it'll be okay.
Professional footballers helping young people with their mental health. That's the aim of virtual soccer schools, alongside learning platform Amazing People Schools. Online, in person, and with AI technology.
My question is, how do you deal with stress on and off the pitch?
Football is the most powerful sport in the world. And utilising footballers, we just see them as players on the pitch, passing the ball and scoring goals, but they have so much more to offer. So at VSS, we're providing them with a platform to showcase their mental health strategies, their setbacks, how they deal with anxiety, pressure, and growth mindset, just not on the pitch, but how they utilise it off the pitch as well.
Former Arsenal defender Thomas Vermaelen was the latest footballer to take part in the charity's first ever in-person session.
Allow yourself to be disappointed.
I enjoy.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Right, time for a quick look at the weather now.
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Rising heat and humidity will bring the risk of thunderstorms to end this week, with significant rain likely this weekend. Many places fine this evening, but there'll be some heavy, possibly thundery showers around. Northern parts looking most at risk. More of the north and the west will see showery outbreaks overnight, locally heavy and thundery. Most other places looking dry, but some low cloud and sea fog will develop. It's going to be quite muggy. Expect sunny spells tomorrow morning once that early low cloud lifts, but there will be a scattering of heavy showers.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
Right, let's take you now to Bridgewater in Somerset. We are expecting an update from Avon and Somerset Police alongside the fire and ambulance services regarding that school coach crash that happened earlier on today. Dan Whitehead is there for us.
Yeah, hi SJ. I think we actually are about to get that statement from the police, ambulance and fire in the next minute or so. I'll step out of the way just to obviously bring you up to speed. This has been declared as a major incident by police. Of course, emergency services attended Exmoor, Weddon Cross on Exmoor at around 3 o'clock this afternoon. We know that there were around 60 to 70 people on board that school coach. It was heading to Minehead Middle School, and a number of casualties were taken to hospital, some of those taken by air ambulance to hospitals including the BRI in Bristol. This is obviously a developing story and very, very worrying for the parents of those children at the school. Now, they have been told to go to the school itself in Minehead. The children, the vast majority were told by police, and the passengers were taken to a rest centre, a pub in the Weddon Cross area in Exmoor, and they will then be taken from there and reunited with their families at the school. What we're hoping to obviously find out in the next couple of minutes is potentially casualty numbers and the seriousness of this situation. There had been some reports from eyewitnesses that this coach had gone off a slope in Weddon Cross. One resident who lives near the site of the crash described it as horrendous, saying the coach went down the slope, describing it as a very steep area and that it was a big coach. There's no barriers on that road. So that's some information. As I say, that is just coming from one local. I think the emergency services will be coming over any second now. Yep, absolutely. So I'm just going to step out of the way, and we'll get an update now from police, ambulance, and fire and rescue, giving us that update on there. We've also, just while I'm waiting for them to come into shot, 1 minute we're told, we've had a statement from Beacon Education Multi-Academy Trust. Now, this is the trust which runs Minehead Middle School. They say they are working closely with the emergency services and relevant authorities following an incident this afternoon to support our pupils, families and staff at this very difficult time. The statement from the Academy goes on to say that we will update our school community further as soon as more information becomes available, and we kindly ask you for your patience and understanding as we manage this evolving situation with care and sensitivity. You can only imagine just how worrying this is for the families of the children, and it is a large number who are on that coach, 60 to 70 people on board that coach, as I say, returning to Minehead Middle School at around 3 o'clock this afternoon, when we understand it was involved in this crash, and eyewitnesses saying it went off a steep slope. Those residents living nearby. We know a number of people have been taken to a nearby hospital, and the BRI we've seen pictures of air ambulances landing on the helipad at the top of the hospital there. So we will find out, hopefully, an update on the casualty numbers, and they're coming over now. So I'm going to step out of the way. Let's get the updates from the emergency services.
Good evening. My name is Chief Superintendent Mark Edgington from Avon Somerset Police, and I'd just like to read a statement. Shortly before 3 p.m. this afternoon, emergency services were called to a collision involving a coach on the A396 at Cutcombe Hill in Exmoor. Approximately 60 to 70 people were believed to be on board at the time. A major incident was declared, with police, fire and ambulance services dispatching crews to the scene. The coach was carrying a number of adults and children to Minehead Middle School when it overturned. We can confirm tonight that one child has sadly died. A formal identification process will need to be carried out, but our thoughts and sympathies are with their family, who were in contact with at this time, and specially trained officers are with them to provide support. A number of other people have presented or been taken to hospital, some with serious injuries. This includes 2 children who were taken to hospital by air ambulance. Many passengers either sustained minor injuries or were being or are physically unharmed and were transferred to a rest centre. Work to help them return to Minehead has been taking place throughout the evening. An investigation into the cause of this incident will be carried out, and we please ask any witnesses to please call 101. We would please ask people to avoid speculation around the circumstances at this time, out of respect for the families, staff and the driver, who will all be deeply affected by this collision, as it is only likely to add to their distress. This has been an incredibly challenging scene for all emergency services, and we are grateful for people's patience while we have worked together to rescue, treat and support those involved. Today's events are truly tragic. We know the whole community and the wider area will be utterly devastated to learn of this news. Our officers will do all they can to help support the community in the days that followed. Thank you.
Evening. I'm Wayne Darch. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations at South Western Ambulance Service, NHS Foundation Trust. Can I begin by saying that on behalf of the service, our thoughts are with all of those involved in today's tragic incident. We were called at 14:58 this afternoon, Thursday the 17th of July, to a significant road traffic incident on the A396 near Minehead. We declared a major incident that has since been stood down. We sent 46 resources to the scene, including 20 double-crewed ambulances, 3 air ambulances, a command team, and 2 hazardous area response teams. We treated several patients at the scene and conveyed 21 patients to hospital via land and by air. Very sadly, as confirmed by Avon and Somerset Police, 1 child has died at the scene, and our thoughts are with their family and friends during this incredibly sad time. I would like to take this opportunity to say a heartfelt thank you to our colleagues and our partners who have responded to this incident. We ask that the public continues to access health services as normal, and if urgent healthcare is needed, please contact NHS 111 or for life-threatening emergencies 999. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Gavin Ellis and I'm the Chief Fire Officer for Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service. And first of all, like my colleagues, I'd like to express my extreme sympathy for all of those that have been affected by today's tragic events. We were mobilised to a major incident to a coach that overturned onto its roof and slid approximately 20 foot down an embankment. To this we sent 8 fire engines, 2 specialist rescue appliances and approximately 60 personnel. Other resources were laser mobilised in support of our crews and our partners. Our crews carried out a number of extrications and rescues in extremely difficult circumstances, and they also supported our ambulance colleagues with casualty treatment. This was a very complex and technically difficult incident for our crews to deal with, and I'm grateful for the tireless effort and actions of the crews in doing everything that they could for those who were trapped as quickly as safely as possible. I'm also grateful to the off-duty firefighter who was travelling behind the coach at the point of the crash, who was able to start making immediate effect to release those crews from those casualties from the bus. Our crews have been receiving support from our wellbeing teams, and again I'm extremely proud of the efforts that my firefighters took today at this tragic event. Thank you.